Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us this week. A Partnership for National Unity continues to focus on its commitment to national unity for our country, as some of you who tuned in earlier would have heard via a press conference that was held right here at CNS Channel 6. So today our discussion surrounds that as we continue on, and of course this time around you'll get to give your views and of course pose your questions to the two gentlemen that I have here. First off, I apologize also for the absence of the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Brigadier David Granger. He is currently out of the jurisdiction tending to other business regarding the office of the Opposition Leader. I begin by reintroducing, of course, Mr. Ronald Bulkan, who is an APNU Member of Parliament, and he's also the Shadow Minister of Local Government. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Malika.
Good to have you. And Mr. Joseph Harmon, Attorney at Law, APNU Member of Parliament, and he's also the General Secretary of a Partnership for National Unity. Welcome, MP Harmon.
Thank you very much, Malika.
All right. Well, since the Brigadier is not here, we'd like to bring to you his message basically on the importance of national unity for our country. So I did an interview with him earlier in this week, so take a look at some of the things he had to say regarding APNU's commitment to national unity and why it is very, very important for all to get on board to fight for national unity and, of course, democracy in our country. Take a look at this clip, and I'll come right back with you. You were viewing a clip there with the opposition leader talking about his plan for national unity, of course, for a Partnership for National Unity and for our country as a whole. I did introduce the gentleman on the panel before we went to that clip, so now we'll jump right into today's program. And I think it's only fitting that we start off with a statement on national unity from yourself, Mr. Ronald Bulkan, just to put today's discussion into some perspective.
Thank you, Malika. Pleasant good day to all of our viewers. Malika, national unity is not only an idea whose time has come. In fact, it is long overdue. The absence of national unity, as we have heard in the clip that you have just shown, has been an impediment to progress and development in our society. The old construct that has been practiced, namely of one-party rule and winner takes all, has failed to deliver the goods. As our viewers would be aware, it is 49 years since we have been an independent nation, having attained political independence from Britain. And sad to say, our progress, or lack of progress rather, in those 49 years has been very marked. And in large measure, it is due to the absence of national unity and social cohesion. It is unfortunate that competition for political power and for who controls the state has largely been on the basis of extraneous considerations such as race, as opposed to policies and programs that a political party is committed to. And as we have heard, that has been an impediment to the development of our society and to the lack of progress in the almost half a century that it has been since we've been an independent nation. Malika, there are many indicators that one can refer to measure this idea of development of our society. And basically, among a few of these would be living standards, quality of life issues, and other social deliverables that a nation owes its people and its citizens, such as education delivery, access to proper health care, social services, public safety and security, all of which have shown a marked decline over the years. However, I would want to firstly and briefly look at one indicator that to me is the surest sign of the failure of post-independent governance arrangements, and that is the question of the size of our population. My recollection is that at about the time when I would have started high school, and that was quite some time ago, it was actually in the late 1960s, we would have heard that the population of Guyana was somewhere in the vicinity of 750,000 persons. The 1980 census placed the population at 758,000, a little bit more than that. By 1990, our population had grown marginally, and it was estimated at 764,000. By 2002, however, the population had started its decline, and it fell to 751,000. And the preliminary results that have been released from the 2012 census places our population at just over 747,000 persons. So what we can see here, Malika, is that we have been depopulating as a nation. It is no secret, it is well known that any entity or organism or organization that does not grow actually dies. So here we have a graphic indicator and example that as a nation we have been dying. If I can focus on the period, on the eve of when the PPP returned to political office in 1992, and as I said, the population in 1990 was placed at 764,000. What we can see is that 24 years later, the population has declined by some 16,000 persons. And Malika, I don't think there are many societies in the world that suffer from a negative decline in their population. So what we are seeing is a graphic and clear illustration that our governance arrangements is failing our population, and it is causing our people to leave our shores. They do not want to stay here to be able to make their contribution to assist in the development of our society. And it is because of the failure of the society to offer them what I've touched on, a decent standard of living, quality of life, proper jobs for their children, education, that they're forced to leave. And one of the even more unfortunate aspects of emigration is that it has been found that those who are the first to leave are actually the most educated, qualified, industrious, ambitious. Those persons who are most dissatisfied about the prevailing conditions in their society. So it is actually a double whammy. And a little later, as we continue our program, Malika, I'd like to offer a comparison with two countries, our neighbor to the south, Brazil, and Singapore, which would have attained political independence a mere 2 years before Guyana did in 1966. And just to highlight this aspect and question of the importance of a population, and in our case, a negative population growth or a decline in population, which is an evidence of failure of governance.
And MP Vulcan, I'm also sure that the issue of a failing security sector would come up too, because we also lose people when they die. And I'm not talking about people who old age. In Guyana we say you die because you got too old, so you die. I'm talking about the young persons who are murdered. I mean people who are being robbed and not just robbed, but people are being robbed and killed. So I'm assuming that too has contributed to this drop in the population. Am I correct?
Malika, I believe that our per capita murder rates are probably twice as high, than what obtains in the United States of America. So indeed, it is true that we lose a lot of our population to murders and by violent means. But I don't think whilst that is a very troubling and an alarming phenomenon, and it's a failure of the government to protect the safety and security of our citizens, I don't believe statistically that would actually factor in to the entire population. But it's not to underplay the importance or significance, because it is that lack of failure of ensuring the safety and security of citizens that it is one of the main drivers that forces people to emigrate. If the state can't ensure the safety and security of its citizens in their homes, or as they try to go about their lawful activities.
Okay, all right. Gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong here. I do believe, and I know that many persons also believe this, that one of the ways in which you could achieve or attain national unity is by bridging this wide gap that we currently have in Guyana between the rich and the poor. Years we have sat and we have seen the PPP, they fill their pockets. You call them cronies. They fill the pockets and the bank accounts of their cronies, and the gap in terms of the rich between the poor, it keeps going this way. How will and Mr. Harmon, if you can comment on this, what can a partnership for national unity do to convince the public that this will not be a practice of APNU? Because, like I said, I think one of the ways in achieving national unity is by decreasing that gap. How will you convince the public that you're not going to do the same thing or be the same way the PPP is?
Well, first of all, let me say, Malika, that we are not a single party in a partnership. We are a partnership, and we are a partnership that comprises several political parties and organizations. In fact, the analysis which Ronald made about one of the primary reasons that there is a lack of national unity is the fact that there is the evidence of it that people have actually been migrating in large numbers over time, and the attendant skill and competence which you lose by that process. Now, I think we in the APNU, we've accepted that analysis which Ronald has made to be true. And therefore, in the formulation of policies, in fact, even in the formulation of the name, A Partnership for National Unity, we've actually embedded that idea of national unity in our name. So we believe that partnerships are the way to go to achieve national unity.
Okay.
So that is reason why we have our name is A Partnership for National Unity. So you cannot have a more clearer definition as to what is our purpose and the vehicle that we will use to achieve national unity. So it is the difference between us, as I said, and the PPP is that they are just a single party. We are a partnership, and we believe in partnerships, and this is the way we believe that we are going to achieve national unity. Ronald has actually made some very important statements on this matter. You've actually asked that I address the question of how do you deal with the gap between the rich and the poor in this country? Every single day, the army of the poor continues to increase in this country. And this is so because, in very large measure, the PPP's policy on jobs or on employment, on the provision and the delivery of certain services, on the award of contracts, have all been directed in one particular way. And what is happening is that you have one group of persons who continue to benefit from the largesse of the administration. But in fact, it is not the PPP's money that they're getting, it's the people's money. It is the people of this country's money. And it is the manner in which the country is governed that allows for this perpetuation of a certain cycle of poverty at a level in this country. And this is what we have actually been addressing from the time the partnership was formed. How do you reduce that gap between the haves and the have-nots? How do we bring more people into the center of society to make them understand that they have a contribution to make to this country, and that it is not about voting with your feet, but voting, putting the X to the right place, in this case a partnership for national unity, and staying here in Guyana to develop it. I think what is important in the analysis which Ronald made is that while our Guyanese citizens have been going, other nationalities, people from other countries, have been coming and taking the benefits of the vast amount of natural resources which we have in this country. It is our belief that the PPP, they have wrongly prioritized development. And to the extent to which they have focused on the creation of certain things at the expense of human development, we believe it is to that extent that this gap between the rich and the poor continues to exist and to become wider and wider and wider. So unless you focus on human development, you cannot have national unity. And this is something that since we came into office in the National Assembly, that we've been focusing on. National development must focus on human development. And once we focus on human development, then I believe that the aspects of national unity and the question of reducing the gap between the rich and the poor, we can address those issues.
Is it expensive to focus on human development?
It is always expensive because, you see, it's an investment which you make in people. It's just not like if you're doing a business and you say, okay, I'm putting in $1,000, I'm investing $1,000, and I'm going to get $2,000 at the end of the day. Human development, the investment in human development is a long-term process that you create conditions in which people are able to utilize the factors of production, right? Labor, the resources, the natural resources of the country, and the ingenuity of your people. So that to the extent to which we focus on human development, we are going to, in my view, bridge that gap and allow for more people to come into the center of the society to take advantage of the vast wealth which this country has. And, you know, we must not be employees of people. We have to be our own employers. We have to now create a class of people in this country, and that is the broad masses of the people that understand that their salvation lies within their hands. And that is why the hand that we have that demonstrates it. Their salvation lies within their hands. It's not about getting a job here and a job there. We have to understand that we can utilize the resources of this country to benefit ourselves and create not just a good life, not just a better life, but a best life for ourselves.
I know currently the door is open really, really wide for persons, whether it be from other political parties or from civil society, to join in with a partnership for national unity to achieve this goal. But if APNU wins the May 11, 2015 regional and general elections, would the door still be open after then for persons who would want to come into APNU after you would assume the office and, of course, become the next government?
Well, I don't like the word if. We deal with when.
Yes.
Because that's really that is our focus. Now I'm saying when we win these elections, we have committed to a government of national unity.
Okay.
What that means, and over the next couple of months, I believe we will elaborate much more clearer on what that means. But in a general sense, what it means is that we will have to look at the skill sets that are available in this country without excluding people.
Okay.
This is the giving effect to Article 13 in our Constitution, which speaks about inclusionary democracy, and not just at the level of government, but all the way down to the national NDCs and to all of the various organs of government. So after May 11th, the 12th and onwards, we are going to have a different type of arrangement in this country, which will see the involvement of Guyanese people in a government of national unity that is meant to move this country forward. I think Ronald, when he makes the analysis, will show you what has happened to us as a result of the kind of government that we have now. If you go across the bridge into Suriname, people want to know what is really happening here, right across the country there. And they're seeing so many things happening. They go to Trinidad, they see a lot of things happening. They go to Barbados, and then they say to me, when I come back here, man, I love my country, you know, but I feel a little down. Now, we gotta change that. When people come here, they must feel, yes, they must have this is GT. I'm back home, and you know, you have the love for your country, but you must feel that visible sign of satisfaction and of progress, which a government of national unity can in fact allow for it to happen.
All right, thank you. And people, can you talk about the comparison that you wanted to make earlier, and let's hear about it and how APNU will, in a sense, piggyback from that, for want of a better word, to take Guyana forward. Of course, with the aim being national unity.
Yes, thank you, Malika. And perhaps I can lead off into answering your question with your previous question to Joe about what guarantees exists under an APNU administration that there will be a government of national unity and a seat at the table for key stakeholders in our society. And I'd like to enjoin and remind our listeners that it is not only the recent statements of various leaders and the leadership within APNU that has been espousing the commitment towards a government of national unity, towards giving meaning to Article 13 of our Constitution, which speaks to inclusionary democracy. And in fact, if one were to go back from the life of the 10th Parliament, ever since the last elections, and look at statements made by the leader of the opposition, I think you would find in a large majority of those public statements that Brigadier Granger actually spoke of an APNU-led administration. So very early on, he was indicating that if APNU obtains the right to form the next government after the last elections of 2011, he was indicating very early on that it would not be an APNU administration. Okay. So the distinction was very early, even though perhaps it was subtly introduced. So he made it clear that it would not be only a government of APNU. And over the last 3 years, we have seen that not only locally throughout Guyana, but even on his travels abroad, and I think in New York last year, coinciding with our independence anniversary, the leader of the opposition took that very message of a pro-Guyana, a one Guyana, a government of national unity, and I believe he expressed a desire that when our country celebrates its 50th independent anniversary, that he hopes that we have a government of national unity where we can firmly turn our backs against the old construct of one-party rule, winner takes all, which, as I tried to relate in my earlier comments, those governance arrangements have failed our people, has failed the society. It has not provided development or material improvement in people's living standards. And we have to embrace a new formula, this formula of inclusionary democracy, inclusionary government, a government of national unity, and strive assiduously to create social cohesion. Malika, the fact that there are many ethnicities and different race groups that make up our society need not be a source of, need not be a liability or a source of division. If properly harnessed, we can take advantage of the presence of various race groups as a source of strength. And so, unfortunately, it was the People's Progressive Party, given the numerical superiority of a particular race group, historically, that has pandered to race and has held on to that race card. But I think it is evident to an overwhelming majority of our citizens that that formula is inappropriate and does not offer proper prospects of developing our society.
If I can jump in here with the race card issue, do you have any concerns that maybe, because the fact is, years gone by, the older folks would have known it like that. You're East Indian, Indo-Guyanese, you vote one side. You're Afro-Guyanese, you vote the other side. Are you concerned, though, that even though we're in a different environment, a different culture, different era, that some of those policies of those older voters could somehow trickle down and poison the minds of our younger people? Are you concerned?
Malika, it would be unwise for one to ignore the possibility of that phenomenon, actually becoming a factor in electoral considerations. But I believe that today's world we live in a very highly competitive world where persons are interconnected internationally, and information and communication happens at the speed of light. So it is more difficult for persons to try and imprison the young people into considerations of the past, because our young people are exposed to modern means of communication, and they are very aware of what happens all over the world. And in today's highly competitive and increasingly globalized world that we live in, one would be handicapping oneself to place importance on considerations such as that, if one is going to develop and move ahead in this competitive world in which we live.
All right. Viewers, if you're now tuning in, of course, this is Facing the Nation. I'll open up the phone lines a little earlier than usual today, so you can get to pose your questions on national unity and any other matter regarding APNU that the gentlemen are in a position to answer. So I'll open up the phone lines a little later on. Gentlemen, another issue that is being discussed and being thrown out there is that, look, APNU is coming to the public. I'm going to say we here because, of course, as you all know, I am an APNU member and a strong supporter of a partnership for national unity. We're going to the public and we're saying that when we get into office, we'll do this, things will be better, a different administration, we'll do things differently. But is there a concern that the public out there may be expecting, if you want to call it, overnight change? How difficult would it be for APNU to erase the damage that the PPP has done in the past 22, almost 23 years? How difficult would that be to do? Mr. Hartman, if you'd like to comment on this.
Well, certainly, Malika. You're talking here about an administration that has been there for over 22 years. And therefore, just a change in government, a change of ministers at that level, will not necessarily guarantee you all the changes down the ladder, all the way down, because this administration has been so vindictive that they've actually sidelined persons who are qualified for appointments, even in ministries and in corporations, in even as low as far along as the RDCs and the NDCs. So in all of the government structure, you have persons who've actually been there and feel that their sole purpose is to carry out the biddings of the political directorate. So it's not, in my view, going to be a task that you can accomplish within the first 20 days or so. But what we can assure you is that we're going to have, and we will make public, our program, what we hope to achieve in the first 100 days, okay, and what we hope to achieve in the first year and on our term of office. And we know that the Guyanese people will understand us because it is going to be a program that is based on practicality, that's going to be based on what we can achieve with the resources that we have, and it's going to be based on a program that will attract or bring into government the best minds, the best brains, the best ingenuity available to Guyanese. It's going to be a task which will require our people who are in the diaspora. They will have a major role to play in that regard. Because I think, as Ronald said, in the migration that's taken place, a lot of our people who have the skills necessary for development, a number of them have gone and they were replaced here by persons who might not be so qualified. But we will have to look at all of these things. And what we'll have to do is to make sure that Guyanese understand that this is a new dispensation, this is a new era, and that their skills, their finances and so on will be safe. We will create a safe environment for them where they can invest. We create a level playing field where people can feel that they will not be victimized in certain ways, and we will focus, as we said earlier, on the education of our people so that they can take their rightful place in society. So if I were to say this is what is going to happen now and later on, what we will do is put out the things that we will achieve in the first 100 days and thereafter.
Great. And people
yeah, Malika, if I could add to what Joe has said, but perhaps to offer a slightly different outlook. I would not discount the importance of political will and the ability to make tough political decisions, which I venture to say will be one of the characteristics of a David Granger presidency. As we seek to give meaning to Article 13 of our Constitution, which calls for inclusionary democracy, and to reject winner takes all, it is important that we remind ourselves, and Joe had alluded to this earlier, is this question of local democracy. There is a clearly identified role for local democracy under our constitutional arrangements. It is the PPP in the last 2 decades that have denied Guyanese citizens their ability to enjoy their constitutional right to practice local democracy. In pursuance of that, what we have had is centralized rule by the central government, whereby our local democratic organs countrywide have been marginalized. And what are these local democratic organs that I speak of, Malika? In order of importance, they're actually our 10 regional democratic councils, or RDCs, because as we know, our country is divided into 10 administrative regions. There are the 6 municipalities or towns, and the 65 neighborhoods. It is the PPP administration that has no interest in the practice and exercise of local democracy. It has led to deplorable conditions in communities countrywide. So I think it would not be unfair to say that the imminent general elections can actually be a referendum on the need for local democracy, because the PPP has made it clear to the Guyanese population and the citizens of our country that they are wedded to winner takes all, to that model, and they're not interested in local democracy. They had 3 years to hold local government elections. They had 3 years to allow the 81 local democratic organs to function with the autonomy and authority that is prescribed under our Constitution. They have interfered in the operations of all of those 81 organs, and they have practiced centralized rule. So I think with a political decision to ensure that local democracy becomes a reality, we're going to see immediate transformation.
Okay.
And there are many other areas where political will and the courage to make strong political decisions. Take, for example, the police force. I don't think it would be unfair if I were to say that, for many, population, there exists a high level of disappointment in the performance of many members of the Guyana Police Force. But the result, it's a failure of lack of leadership by our Minister of Home Affairs, the incumbent, Mr. Clement Rohi, and an APNU-led administration will ensure that accountability exists within the Guyana Police Force, and that they, in the performance of their duties, that we have a high level of efficiency. So, in key areas such as accountability, transparency, adherence to the rule of law, respect for democratic institutions, not what we have seen practiced by the PPP, which is disrespect for the National Assembly, non-assent by the President to bills passed in the National Assembly, the financial lawlessness that we have seen perpetrated and practiced by the PPP in the last 3 years, that culminated in the unlawful expenditure of $4.5 billion that was disapproved in the last year's budget, for which APNU has brought an action in the courts, only to learn that the entire $37 billion that was disapproved by the National Assembly was actually spent. And then earlier this morning we heard of a continuation of that pattern, whereby the PPP is treating the resources of the country as if it's personal property. They're dipping their hands into agencies such as the GGMC, $3 billion here, another few $1 billion there, so various ministers can go about practicing a partisan agenda. I think we will see a marked departure from that level of irresponsibility and recklessness and financial lawlessness that will manifest itself into fairly dramatic improvements. But of course, as Joe said, there are certain other areas that it will take time. For example, in the proper delivery of education and healthcare, we will not see such a an immediate overnight change.
All right. I think this is an appropriate time to go to our phone lines because I know our viewers out there have some questions to ask and comments to make. Viewers, the telephone lines are now open. Please turn the volumes of your television sets down, be respectful, and of course, be as brief as you possibly can. While we're waiting, do we have one? While we're waiting on those calls to come through, MP Bolton, earlier you talked about a comparison that you would have liked to make with our neighboring countries. We can go to that while we wait on the calls to come in.
Quickly, Malika, I'd just like to bring to the attention of our viewers, and I said that I would refer to two examples, our neighbor to the south, Brazil, and Singapore, because they became independent at about the same time that Guyana did in the mid-1960s. And for the purposes of the comparison, the population of Brazil in 1980 was 122 million. By last year, it had grown by some 80 million persons to an excess of 202 million. So as I said, whilst we have suffered negative population growth and we have depopulated as a nation, our neighbor immediately to the south has grown by 80 million persons. And now let's take Singapore. In the early 1960s, the population of Singapore was about 1.65 million persons. By 1980, it had grown to about 2.4 million persons. And by last year, it had actually more than doubled to 5.5 million persons. Now, it might be interesting for viewers to be told that the size, the area of Singapore, it's a mere 718 square kilometers. It's only about 1/3 the size of the smallest of the 10 regions in Guyana, which is Region 4. But yet, it has been able to grow its population from just a little over 1.5 million in the early 1960s to 5.5 million by the time of last year. This is a country and a society that their GDP per capita was in excess of $55,000 US. So I think we can make a clear correlation to to population growth and progress and development of a society, as opposed to what has obtained here, where we have suffered a population decline and a comparative decline in all indicators of quality of life.
Apart from some of the things both yourself and MP Harmon would have said, is there does a country or a government need to come up with a special program, a special plan to ensure that we have population growth, apart from just improving living standards and, well, of course, in our case in Guyana, just changing the government, just voting this government out? Is there a plan that you need to come up with to promote growth?
Malika, there's obviously no silver bullet that exists, but if one were to identify one key factor, it would be the question of governance. And governance, of course, would include areas such as accountability, transparency, equity, care, compassion, transparent arrangements. This is what has been absent, and it is as a result of the absence of some of those factors that has led to a breakdown into our governance arrangements that has caused persons to lose confidence in the future of the society, and it's one of the prime causes of immigration.
Do you think that officials within the PPP government knows this, the information that you're putting out here? I'm asking because, again, then it will come back to the question, why have they not fixed the problem in 23 years? Well, in this case, it would be less because some of the problems, they created it themselves. Why have they not fixed the problem?
Malika, for 1 minute, I would not believe that they're unaware of the need for good governance and what the absence of good governance would have done. As I said, the statistics are staring us in the face that on the eve of their return to office to now, we have suffered a fairly sizable decline in our population. So despite the boast that we would have heard from the PPP, and they're going around the country now
Economic
boasting
growth.
about progress, the facts are staring us in the face that a significant percentage of our society don't buy into that message, and it is evidenced by they're leaving our shores. But with respect to a direct answer to your question, I think the PPP has brought a selfish outlook and a selfish perspective. We have increasingly seen that a characteristic of their rule has been for the benefit of a tiny minority. So we have seen, for example, Praderville 1, and then that was followed by Praderville 2. Well, should our population be unwise enough to have the PPP continue in government, it will lead to Praderville 3 and more, and we will have that concentration of wealth where only the interests of a tiny few, the cronies and the cabal, or as has been said, the friends, family, and favorites, will benefit at the expense of the majority of our people. And therefore, this gap, this inequity that exists in our society between the haves and the have-nots will continue to grow to fairly explosive situation.
Gentlemen, with about 6 minutes left in the program, we've already established that, look, in order to remain committed and to achieve a government of national unity, we first have to vote the PPP government out of office on the 11th of May 2015. What is the most important thing that you would want the viewers and the general public out there to take away from this discussion in terms of being aware as we move deeper into the election season? Beginning with you, Mr. Harmon.
Okay, I think that our conversation this afternoon has focused on the need for national unity, the need for cohesiveness in what we do, the need for seeing Guyana as one constituency and not about 6 or 7 different constituencies where there are enclaves where people feel they can go and where others cannot go. We need to see Guyana as one nation, not as about a nation of the east and then a nation on the west. We need to see that. what we also need to understand is that the wealth of this country, the resources of this country belong to all of us. And that if we are to participate in the realization of that wealth, to make our lives better, to make our families better, to make us have a better quality of life, that we need to ensure that we are part of the process of change that is taking place. We need to first of all ensure that not just ourselves, but that our family, our friends, our neighbors, the people in the barbershops, the people in the markets, that you know that they are registered to be able to vote, that their names are on the list of electors that are eligible to vote. We need to make sure that we need to be now our brothers and sisters keeper, because as was explained earlier, too many people in 2011 did not vote for that change which was necessary then. We are asking you to understand that the change is even more important now, because you've had at least 3 more years of that sort of madness that has taken place in this country under the PPP. And so it is important that you understand that if you are to be a man or a woman in this country, if you are to stand up to the tyranny that has become the PPP, that the first thing you have to do is to ensure that you're registered, ensure that you possess that identification card which allows you to vote. You cannot wish for change and just sit at home and expect change will take place. You have to be part of the process to make that change happen. So what I'm saying is that this is what we need to know, this is what I want you to take away from this program, that change must come in Guyana, and that I must be a part of that change. This is what we're asking of you, that you make sure you take the steps that are necessary to make sure that change comes, and that when change comes, that you're present and correct to receive the benefits of your labor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harman. And as we have to wrap up, just about less than a minute, Mr. Volker, because I'm already getting the signal.
Yeah. Malika, I'd like to endorse the message just delivered by Joe, which is the need for persons to participate in the process, and to remind our viewers and our voters that the vote belongs to you. It does not belong to a political party. So if you believe that we must firmly reject winner takes all and one party rule, then you have a duty and obligation to turn your backs on the party that is wedded to that model, which is the PPP, and to vote for a party that will deliver inclusionary democracy, a government of national unity. That's a partnership for national unity.
Thank you very much, MP Vulcan. And the only thing I could add to that is do not waste your vote. So, of course, you have to vote a partnership for national unity. Gentlemen, thank you very much. APNU Member of Parliament and Shadow Minister of Local Government, Mr. Ronald Bulkin, and APNU Member of Parliament and General Secretary of a Partnership for National Unity, Mr. Joseph Harman. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for tuning in. Join us again next week. Be good Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.